Hi, and welcome back to Pod Sothoth, a Lovecraft book club. And tonight I have with me Claire Reynolds. Say hi, Claire.
Hi.
Hey. And I'm Todd Beardsley. That was a weird way to do it, but maybe we'll just stick with it. And tonight we'll be talking about the Cats of Ulthar.
Uh-oh.
An ancient prophecy speaks of a mighty house cat.
If I didn't say that already. Did I say that already?
Nope.
I think I might have said that already. All right.
Did not.
Cool. Yeah, I read that last week. It was a sweet 9-minute reading. Very short story. And I'm kind of over the very short stories from Lovecraft. I mean, most of what he wrote was short stories, but I think next time we're gonna jump into something a little longer. I'm not super sure.
I think I would like to read it sometime. Read the story sometime. Would I ever be allowed to do that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Are you kidding me? Yes. Yeah, for sure. I think, if you would prefer Claire to read it, just tweet at us at PodSothoth.
Hi, Mom and Dad.
Or write to us at hideous@podsothoth.club. You know that's our email address, right?
I did not know that. Now I know.
Yeah. So it turns out hideous is the number one most used adjective by Lovecraft, which is why I picked it. Yeah. He's a big fan of adjectives. He uses them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Hideous is the number one over
lean,
over the corpus of it. Yeah, I don't know why lean. Yes, that is a reference to the notary who is the lean nith, which I believe he's described every time he's mentioned. He is described as lean. So, is that a thing with notaries?
Them being lean?
I mean, you're a lawyer. You know about notaries.
I mean, all the notaries I know are like normal sized.
Normal sized. All right.
But maybe notaries didn't make a whole lot of money in Lovecraft's world. It's not a dollar breaker.
Well,
I mean,
perhaps
it's a useful thing, but I don't think anyone out there is only a notary.
That's true. Yeah, and if you are only a notary, you're going to be pretty lean,
right?
Because you're not making a lot of money, especially in the time of Ulthar. So let's talk about that. The city of Ulthar, which lies beyond the river sky, that's about all we know about it. It is a city. It lies beyond the river sky. It seems to be kind of old timey. There's no mention of cars or telegraphs or telephones with super long wires, and so people put this in one of two places. One, it might be in the Dreamlands. It might not be on Earth. But there's still people and cats and all that. And second, which I like more actually, this I believe is Lovecraft's first prehistory story. In prehistory, in weird fiction, is pretty well dominated by Robert E. Howard. Robert E. Howard wrote Conan the Barbarian, and that whole series, and that is all squarely on Earth prehistory. Tolkien is also sometimes cited as this is not just fantasy, but this is prehistory Earth. The geography is kind of sort of Europe, but still. Anyway, I think Ulthar is in this zone of a prehistorical Earth where this is a time before writing. Again, this might hurt the notary gig if people are not literate.
What did notaries do back then? Well, I guess they just maybe witnessed people sign their X.
Maybe, and then showed up in court or something. I mean, there was court, right? Hammurabi is prehistory, right? This is a biblical time. It's before Egypt.
I'm Googling notary in olden days.
Mm-hmm.
Notaries can be traced back to ancient Egypt when they were known as scribes.
Okay. Well, there you go. Well, and we have the appearance. Should we go over the story? We should go over the story.
Yes.
So let's bullet point the story. So it's real short. Basically, it opens with, it is said in Ulthar, which lies beyond the river sky, wherever that is, no man may kill a cat. Okay. So it is noteworthy for this feature of law where people can't kill cats.
You know what? You're
Ah,
not supposed to kill a cat now.
yeah, it's still not cool. Turns out. And cats are mentioned as like they're the soul of antique Egyptius. They know the secrets of hoary and sinister Africa, which, by the way, puts it on Earth. Like, I don't know if Africa actually exists in the Dreamlands or not, or is ever mentioned again. So we have Ulthar, right? This is a story told by an unnamed narrator, reflecting upon why this is.
I have a theory.
Go ahead.
It's not like a big deal theory. It's just that, like,
Okay.
obviously a cat wrote this.
Interesting.
The narrator is a cat. Absolutely. I can see our cat being like, oh, well,
In Ulthar.
He's like, well, you really shouldn't kill a cat. Let me tell you why.
I like it. I've never heard, again, Claire, you bring so much to this podcast. I have never read this. That's really interesting.
So he's got a dog messing with him, and he's like, whoa, now, let me tell you a little story.
Hang on. Before you kill me.
You may want to rethink this.
Not once has it ever occurred to me that maybe this is something a tale a cat would like. That is the animation of this, right? It is that, or the comic book. Like, it is very clearly like the Neil Gaiman-esque comic book reading of this is from the point of view of a cat. So anyway, what happens in the story? Well, this wandering caravan comes in. This little boy has a kitten. He's got a little black cat. He loves the cat. He has no parents. He's an orphan. And it turns out in Ulthar, there's an old cotter and his wife, and they freaking hate cats a lot, to the point where they go out of their way to set up devious traps and kill them. And what do you know? What happens to this kitten? Well, the kitten gets got too. The little boy is like super sad about it. He cries and cries. Someone tells him about the cotter, and he gets real serious about it. Like, oh Fortuna kind of serious about things. And starts praying. There's like, he prays in some weird language nobody knows, which we'll get to because there's a line in there I really like. But then they leave the next morning, and it turns out all the cats are gone, and everybody's like, "What?" And there's these theories that, oh well, the gypsies,
what?
They took all the cats in retribution.
Gypsies is not appropriate word.
Okay.
What?
Wait, does he use the word gypsies?
He does not use the word gypsies, but there is. Well, let's just jump into it, right? The word gypsies. So the word gypsies does evoke Egypt. That is the root of the word. And these wandering traders and travelers seem to come from Egypt. They have a lot of Egyptian stuff with them, right? Like their wagons are weirdly painted with human bodies and the heads of cats and hawks and rams, right? Like it's very kind of Egyptian sort of iconography there. The horn with the disc in the middle is a very kind of Horus sort of thing. And so it's pretty, it's a short walk from the wanderers to Ulthar to Egypt. Especially when you consider this kid, this little boy, his name is Menace. Which I was, between you and me, kind of drunk when I read it, and I may have said menses a couple times. But it's Menace. MENES, not Dennis the Menace. I know where you're going with this. Nope.
Oh, he was a pharaoh.
Yeah, he is the.
Sorry,
he is.
Your thunder.
No, you didn't. Like he is the mythical founder of Memphis, which is the seat of Egyptian civilization.
No, but okay. I am very concerned about the fact that we have just glossed over the term gypsy is considered to be taboo now.
I think sure, it is. But is it? It is.
It is.
It is.
It is.
Well, is it?
It is.
Because if you say like, oh, they gypped me, that is racist for sure.
Now you're supposed to use Romani, but of course, if I didn't know that the term gypsy comes from people from Egypt,
That's the thing, and
but that
that's
makes
what.
sense because that is where I thought that that's supposed to be like the origin of the Romani, where originally.
Well,
from.
no one really knows, right? Like the Romani
Yeah.
are an ancient people, just like the
Yeah.
Semites and like the Zoroasters. Like they all their origins, outside of the Africa, basically. Like there's a big skip, right, between like the rise of humanity in Olduvai Gorge and all of these ethnic groups, right? And that's the period where this takes place. That's the period where like all like weird fiction / prehistory takes place in this subgenre anyway of weird fiction. So okay, I apologize for using the term gypsy and the loaded connotations it has today. I didn't feel it was particular. I, as a non-Romani person, don't feel it's particularly racist when talking about what are probably the original people that refers to, right? Like
actually, but they were from the Romani were from. I'm sorry, I misspoke. The Romani are thought to be from India. I believe it's a mistaken belief that they were from Egypt.
Right, because like Egypt is, weird and mystical and, full of swarthy people.
All I'm saying is that if we were popular and people listened to us,
this would be a problem.
This would be a problem. We would get angry emails. And you would have to apologize.
Okay, well, you know what? I will pre-apologize for our during our pre-popularity period here. Because people are going to go back in 10 years and find this episode and think, oh my God, I can't believe gypsy. Now, if that is like the thing you're worried about with racism, I have news for you from here in 2020.
There are many, 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 yes. No, I'm just saying that.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I am with you. And it is hard. It's hard not to fall into the trap of like, well, when Lovecraft said it, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't want to get into that because we know Lovecraft is a giant racist. And that, right? So, but I will say that, the people described, who have visited Ulthar here and who like predicated the events of the story, were almost certainly from Egypt, are wandering travelers, are trading gay beads. And also I super want some gay beads.
That's the only kind of beads half the kids in our household wear.
Right. And then they blow out of town and all the cats are gone. And so the townsfolk, the town council, the burgesses, believe that's like, oh, well, maybe these traders took them. Maybe the swarthy traders from the south like stole the cats. And somebody's like, maybe it was like the old guy and his wife who keep killing all the cats. And they're like, no.
Like the idea of how do you steal? How do you steal multiple cats? I mean, it would be very difficult just to steal one cat, let alone multiple,
all of the cats.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not like there's 8, this is a town, and they have, they clearly have domesticated cats.
What happens at the end? It clearly took a lot of cats.
And so that's the thing, right? So Menace says his prayer. They leave. All the cats are gone. Oh my God, they took our cats. They come back the next day. So they're back the next day. They don't want to eat their food. They don't want to like drink the milk. They just want to hang and chill by the fire and in the sun. And they're super lazy. And I wonder why that could be. Well,
my belly is so full.
Yep. And so it turns out the town elders, they finally go and break down the door of the Cotter's house. And they find the 2 skeletons of the Cotter and his wife, picked clean and also covered in beetles. Another Egyptian reference, like beetles are big in Egypt, mythology. And it turns out, so like we are left to believe anyway that the cats, ate them, and at the direction of this boy wizard, who then went on to found Egypt. So that's the story. And now I did gloss over a few things here. So just focusing on Menace and Atal. So Atal is the kid who says to the town, he lives in Ulthar, he's an Ultharian or whatever, and he says to the town leadership, is like, hey, by the way, I saw all the cats in town last night, and they were walking two abreast, and they were circling the Cotter's house in some kind of like bestial ritual that we've never seen before. And everyone was like, yeah, whatever.
Do you, I feel like I'm always bringing up my son. Yeah, do you remember when when everyone thought that one kid from his school was missing, and he swore that he walked home with him, and so we called the police. They're like, no, but then it turns out the kid was at choir practice the whole time. So not only did he not walk home with Jimmy, but he was not even missing to begin with.
Very similar story.
I was like, oh man, that's not an example of a false confession, of like bad eyewitness testimony. I don't know what is.
Well, good point. Sorry. Good point. No, don't apologize. Because it's even mentioned in the story. It's even mentioned in the story. Like, can we even believe this kid? But then they find the skeletons and all that. It's like, oh, well, maybe Atal was onto something. But little Atal, like, he and Menez, they kind of have the only, like, there's no dialogue, but they kind of have the only speaking parts in this story, which is super duper unusual because I don't know of any other, now I haven't looked it up or anything, but I don't know any other Lovecraft story where not just one, but there are two children who are the major characters. I don't know of any other child character, which is interesting to me that this story has not one but two kids. And then Atal as well, by the way, is the second most, I think he's the second most common recurring character in Lovecraft stories. After Randolph Carter from last week. So Atal comes back. He is a fixture in the Dreamlands. He is in another story called The Other Gods, which is, again, like maybe Dreamlands, maybe prehistory, but he's definitely in the Dreamlands. He's like an old man in the Dreamlands, and he is one of the people that helps Randolph Carter in Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. He's like an old priest or something, and he brings up the cats of Ulthar specifically. So in that story, so keep an eye out for him in the future.
All right.
So the thing about cats, we have a cat. He is a jerk, and I think this is normally the way cats operate. I think most people, like even cat people, and I will say reluctantly that I'm a cat person. I've had cats pretty much all my life. I've had two dogs. One of them is your dog. It's definitely a stepdog. And then my mom had a dog when I was a kid. But that was my mom's dog. That was nobody else's dog. But I've had cats, and like I've probably had, I don't know, 6 maybe over the course of my life.
Wow.
It's rare that I don't have a cat around, and so I guess that kind of makes me a cat person.
Yep. I mean, if you buy into the dichotomy that you have to be either a cat person or a dog person.
Cats are like aloof and weird and seem to see things that humans don't see and have like a mysterious inner life. I don't know about that last part with this cat though. The cat that we have right now. I'm not entirely convinced this cat is a neurotypical cat, let's say. So you stumbled across the new name. So, cat, as T.S. Eliot said, like cats have several names, right? You stumbled across the name of Sepulcher for this cat, and he does seem to respond to that.
It's the way I say it, I'm sure.
The way you say it. Yeah. Can you take another take at that? Because like your audio went all crazy.
Sepulcher.
Okay, good. Excellent. Thank you. One more?
Sepulcher.
Very good.
Sepulcher.
Yeah, it's a weird way to say it.
And it's like a Muppet.
It's a Muppet. Yeah. And it's like, and I can see, so he just looked over here He's out in the yard right now, and I can see out in the yard. And he looked right over like as soon as he said it. So let's see. What else do we want to talk about this thing? Like, it is a short story. It is. I don't know how many words it is. It's like 1,200 words or something. It's crazy
Okay.
short.
I still do? Okay, so it's something to do with their yard. Why are people in this village are
Yeah.
angry that these old people are killing their cats, but they're afraid of the old people, and it's something to do with their yard?
It is a story of the most ineffective HOA in all of history and prehistory.
That's great.
This is a bad HOA.
They couldn't even send a passive aggressive letter.
Nope. Yeah, their yard is awful. What is the phrase that they use? It's like, let me see. It's a neglected yard is one way to describe it. There's like, he uses another adjective in there, like a.
They preferred not to chide the old cotter till they met him outside his dark and repellent yard.
His repellent yard, right?
Yeah, that could be us. That
even through the course of the story, it went from neglected to repellent. Like, now maybe it's repellent on account of all of like maybe the Rube Goldberg style cat traps that are everywhere.
I mean, maybe an old fortune teller told this man or this woman that, like, years ago when they were just children, that that cats would eat them.
Okay,
and that's how they would die, at the paws of cats. And
so they've been living in terror of
any
cats.
cat that has been coming near them, they're like, murder it now, kill it dead. But little did they know that the killing of the cat is what would result. I definitely very interested in their motivations.
Well, I mean, they're old people. Like, that's the motivation we have from them, is that they're old.
And we know that Lovecraft
hates
very
old people.
nuanced when he spoke about anybody who was different than him.
Right. So he was 30 years old when he wrote this. So he wasn't really young anymore. So, by the way, he wrote this, according to sources, according to Donald Burleson, in Lovecraft, The Disturbing Universe. He wrote this story on June 15th, 1920. We will be releasing this podcast on June 15th, 2020. Exactly. So this podcast will mark the 100th anniversary of the authorship, at least, of The Cats of Ulthar. It wasn't published until November of 1920. But that said, so it's somewhat like celebrating a conception date rather than a birth date. But yeah, so he was 30 years old when he wrote this, and he didn't like old people. Mainly because old people, reminded him of mortality and sickness and all that, and he was not into that.
He had a lot of issues.
He did, and it was 1920. He had already been rejected from the army. He did try to join the army to go fight in World War One, to go fight the Huns because he wanted to defend England mainly, but he got kicked. He wasn't taken. He was too sickly, and it's also there's some conspiracy theory that his mother was a socialite, in Providence, and maybe pulled some strings to make sure that he didn't get picked up in the army. Yeah, and there's some quote. St. Joshi talks about this in his writings about how his mother was very against him joining the army, to the point where he purportedly told him that she would like write letters infinitely. She would write infinite letters to keep him out of the army.
So she was a total Karen.
A little bit. Karen is going to be like not a thing when people listen to this 10 years from now.
Oh, I know. Yeah. It all moves so fast.
I do like, speaking of names, I do like all the names in here, except for Menez's name. Menez's name is really hard to pronounce when you're drunk. But all the other ones are pretty easy, right? So we've got.
I did notice here. Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably the drunkest I've been when I.
It was cute.
You know what so there's an acting tip. When you want to play drunk and you're acting and you're not actually drunk, right? Because drunk people, you don't play like big and garrulous. You play finely
Right.
controlled.
Yeah.
Because that's how drunk people act, right? And I
Yeah,
could
they're trying to
hear
not let people know.
they're trying to be straight. I am super sober right now. And I could hear that in this podcast. It was like, oh, I am pronouncing all of these words the way they should be pronounced.
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, so like, wait a minute, is Agent Smith drunk the whole time? Another bombshell in this Lovecraft podcast. But yeah, so we've got Shang the blacksmith. I love him. Thule the cutter of stone. I love him. And these dudes are ripped, right? These are like Robert E. Howard kind of Conan the Barbarian characters. They are gigantic dudes. To go knock down the frail door of the Cotter's house.
Not Nith though. He's lean.
No.
Is he okay? No, he is mentioned in here without the adjective lean.
Nith the lean nuttery, the lean Nith. Nope, every time. He's got 3 mentions. Yep. Every one of them he's lean.
Yeah. So you're saying that he's a slender man.
Oh no! Wait a minute. Is this the proto Slenderman?
No, he's the only one that's like got any sense about him.
He's also the only one who like listens to Atal.
Yeah.
And takes Atal seriously. So anyway, let's see. And then we have like the Cranon. Cranon is the guy, which every time I read it, I'll tell you what, like all my outtakes are me saying Kramer instead of Cranon, because I see the KR like leap out at me and I'm like, Kramer, nope,
wrong again.
Cranon. Too bad he's racist too. Anyway, I like the spell that the kid casts, right?
Well, it starts with meditation and finally to prayer. He stretched out his arms toward the sun and prayed in a tongue no villager could understand. I like that, yeah.
Well,
though indeed, the villagers did not try very hard to understand.
Try hard to understand, which I liked a lot, right? Because now the clouds are changing and they're like taking the form of animals. So maybe if they just like put their back into it, they could understand it. That was another thing I did want to bring up. So thank you for bringing that up. And I think we have beat this dead cat.
No. It's a dead horse. You swing a dead cat.
You swing a dead cat to beat a dead horse. But in this case, it's not a horse, it's a cotter. Anyway, I think that's all I got. We are at just about 35 minutes for a 9-minute reading.
Mm-hmm. Moral of the story is probably listen to your local notary.
Yes, especially when they have supernatural things to report. And am I going to do an outro? Well, let's do an outro. So that's it for this week's Pod Sawthoth, a Lovecraft book club. I've been Todd Beardsley.
I am still Claire Reynolds.
And I hope you all have a great night. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm not sure how to do the outro, so I'm going to cut in here. How about this? You can follow us on Twitter at PodSawthoth, or you can write to us at hideous@podsawthoth.club. And if you do, please mention some sort of mechanism for pronouncing your name in a human tongue. So if we read it aloud, we can attribute it correctly. And have a great night. Thank you very much.